The sky over the planet was dark, streaked with ash and smoke from battles long past. Jagged mountains rose like broken teeth, their shadows stretching across the barren plains below. Elara crouched behind a ridge, her sharp eyes scanning the valley for any movement. She had traveled here to observe, not to fight, but today something unusual had caught her attention. Below, in the open expanse of scorched earth, a single human stood. Alone, against hundreds. Aliens with metallic bodies and glowing red eyes moved in disciplined lines, their mechanical limbs clicking as they advanced. Each one was a deadly soldier, part of a swarm that had overrun colonies across the sector. Yet the human did not run. The human did not hide. The human moved with careful purpose, their stance tense but unbroken. Elara's heart raced as she adjusted her scope. She had read reports of human resilience before, had seen stories of small groups resisting alien fleets, but this was something extraordinary. The human, Kale, she learned later, was not armed with advanced weapons, only a jagged blade in one hand and a makeshift shield in the other. But Kale's eyes were steady, calculating. The first alien struck, advancing quickly, its metal limbs whirring. Kale dodged, rolling low and slashing with the blade, sparks flying as metal met metal. The alien stumbled, its systems faltering under the unexpected strike. Another came, and Kale ducked behind a fallen pillar, springing up to deliver a sharp kick that sent the alien tumbling. Elara whispered under her breath, her voice trembling with awe. "We must have heirs," she said. She did not know if the human could survive this fight, but the courage on display was a spark she could not ignore. If such strength existed in one human, it deserved to continue, to live on, to inspire others. The battle raged for hours. The alien swarm seemed endless, advancing in waves that would have crushed any ordinary opponent. Yet Kale moved with a mixture of instinct and strategy that was uniquely human. He led the aliens into traps he set along the valley, using jagged rocks, fallen beams, and even the occasional pool of molten lava from the volcanic fissures nearby. Each trap worked perfectly, scattering the swarm and buying him precious moments to catch his breath. Elara could see the toll on Kale's body. Cuts streaked across his arms, bruises darkened his skin, and blood stained the earth. But he did not falter. Every move was precise, every strike deliberate. Even when exhausted, he relied on cunning over brute force, drawing the aliens into corners where their numbers became a disadvantage. At one point, an alien launched a spinning attack, its arm transforming into a blade that could slice through steel. Kale jumped aside just in time, rolling to his feet as the blade buried itself into the ground where he had been moments ago. Without hesitation, he grabbed a jagged rock and hurled it with perfect aim, hitting the alien sensor array. Sparks flew, and the creature collapsed. Elara's breath caught. This human, alone and battered, had held his ground against creatures designed for war. She scribbled notes in her journal, her hand trembling. Every move, every tactic, every bit of courage had to be remembered. This was not just survival. It was a lesson in human ingenuity, in determination, in defiance of impossible odds. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, the shadows grew long. The aliens, confused by the humans' relentless tactics, began to hesitate. Their numbers still threatened to overwhelm him, but hesitation was enough. Kale seized the opportunity, leading the aliens into a narrow ravine, where only a few could follow at a time. One by one, he struck them down, or forced them into traps, reducing their numbers significantly. Elara's admiration grew with each passing moment. She could not intervene. She was only a witness, a recorder of events, but she felt a deep connection to the lone human fighting below. There was a fire in him, a will to survive and protect that transcended fear or pain. And in that fire, she saw hope for humanity itself. Night fell, and the valley was bathed in the pale light of twin moons. Kale leaned against a jagged rock, breathing heavily, his body trembling from exhaustion. Around him lay the fallen aliens, their mechanical bodies sparking and twisted. The fight was not over. He could not survive another wave if they came. But for now, the battlefield was silent. Alara made her decision. She would find a way to reach him. She could see that he had no reinforcements, no allies to rely on. Alone, he was a symbol of human courage, but he was also vulnerable. If he died here, the spark she had witnessed might be lost forever. Moving carefully, she descended the ridge, avoiding the patrols of scattered alien drones. Every step was measured, every breath controlled. When she finally reached Kale, she found him slumped against a rock, bleeding from multiple cuts, his sword still clutched in one hand. His eyes opened slowly, wary, but alert. "You don't have to fight alone anymore," she said softly. Her voice startled him at first, but he quickly assessed her. There was no threat, only concern. Kale allowed her to help him stand, leaning heavily on her support. He could barely move, yet there was a defiance in his gaze that refused to vanish. "Why? Why help me?" he asked, voice hoarse. Alara shook her head. "Because the world needs to see what humans can do. Because you fought alone, and you survived. That fire. It must continue." Kale nodded weakly, understanding more than words could express. Together, they moved toward a hidden cave she had discovered earlier, a temporary refuge from the alien patrols. The journey was slow, but Kale's determination kept him moving. Each step was a testament to human will, a refusal to surrender even when all seemed lost. Inside the cave, she tended to his wounds. Her hands were gentle, her focus unwavering. She cleaned the cuts, applied antiseptic, and bound the worst of the injuries. Kale winced occasionally, but he remained silent, his eyes fixed on the flickering light of a small fire she had kindled. "Why do you fight?" Alara asked finally, curious. "What makes you keep standing when they keep coming?" Kyle looked at her, his expression tired but resolute. "Because if humans stop fighting, then there's nothing left to protect. We may be weak alone, but we survive. We adapt. We endure. That's who we are." Alara nodded slowly. She had witnessed that truth firsthand, and it filled her with awe. The humans she had studied for years, reading reports and observing from afar, had never shown her the raw intensity of survival she saw now. This one human embodied everything remarkable about her species: courage, ingenuity, and an unbreakable will. As they sat by the fire, the sounds of the alien patrols echoed faintly in the distance. Kale drifted into a restless sleep, his body finally succumbing to exhaustion. Alara remained awake, her eyes on him, her mind racing. She thought about the future, about what this human could teach the rest of humanity if he survived. She thought about heirs, about carrying forward not just the bloodline, but the spirit, the fire that refused to die. She whispered once more, almost to herself, "We must have heirs." The words were both a prayer and a vow. Humanity's legacy was fragile, but she had seen the spark that could ignite it again, and she would protect it, no matter the cost. Outside the cave, the alien drones moved cautiously, unaware of the hidden human and the observer who now guarded him. The night stretched on, silent except for the crackle of the fire and the soft breathing of the survivor. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new fights, and new tests of courage. But for tonight, Kayla had survived, and Alara had witnessed something extraordinary. A human standing alone against impossible odds, refusing to yield. The firelight flickered across Kale's face, casting long shadows on the cave walls. Alara's heart swelled with hope and determination. One human could not save the world alone, but perhaps, with the spark she had seen, humanity could rise again. She would see to it. She would make sure the fire burned on. And as the twin moons rose high, illuminating the desolate valley outside, Alara made her silent promise. The fight was not over, and neither was humanity. The story of this lone human, of Kale's courage, was only the beginning. The cave was quiet, but the tension in the air was heavy. Kale lay on the rough stone floor, his body bruised and battered from the relentless battle. Elara worked silently beside him, cleaning the worst of his wounds and binding the bleeding cuts. Her hands moved carefully, but her mind raced. She had seen the courage of one human on the battlefield, and now she realized that courage alone would not be enough. Humans needed more than heroes. They needed a plan, a future, and someone to carry their spirit forward. "Kyle," she said softly, "you survived today, but tomorrow the swarm may return. You can't fight them alone forever." Kale shifted slightly, wincing, and opened one eye to look at her. "I don't fight alone," he said quietly, his voice hoarse but firm. "I fight for everyone, even the ones who can't fight back." Elara nodded. There was truth in his words. Humans had always survived through ingenuity, courage, and the ability to work together. But here, on this distant world, most of their colonies had fallen. What remained were scattered survivors, hiding and struggling to survive. She realized that Kale was more than a fighter. He was a symbol of hope, a spark that could ignite the rest of humanity. She helped him sit up and handed him a water canister. "We need more than hope," she said. "We need a plan to preserve your knowledge, your skills, and your courage. If humanity is to survive, we must ensure that the fire continues." Kale drank slowly, letting the water soothe his parched throat. "Fire?" he repeated, a faint smile tugging at the corner of his lips. "You mean, like passing it on? Teaching others?" Elara nodded. "Not just teaching, preserving, protecting, making sure the next generation learns what it means to survive, to fight, and to think like humans. You've shown me what we are capable of." "Others need to see it too." Kyle's expression darkened. "Many humans are gone. Many colonies are lost. How do we even start?" Elara's eyes hardened with determination. "We start with the ones who are left. Survivors hiding in abandoned settlements, people scattered across this planet, and others. We gather them, teach them, train them. We preserve knowledge and skill. And we make sure that our bloodline, our culture, our spirit, survives." Kale looked at her, a mixture of exhaustion and admiration in his eyes. He could see the truth in her words. She was right. He had survived alone, but alone was not enough. Humans thrived in unity, in learning, in carrying knowledge forward. And if they were to survive this invasion, they would have to embrace that truth. The next morning, they left the cave before dawn. The valley below was still quiet, but Elara could feel the presence of alien patrols moving carefully among the shadows. She led Kale along narrow paths, avoiding open spaces where they could be easily spotted. Along the way, she explained what she knew about other survivors. Small pockets of humans hiding in abandoned colonies, in caves, in underground tunnels. Kale listened intently, each story fueling a new sense of purpose within him. "We have to reach them," he said. "They need guidance, training, hope. If they know we survived, maybe they'll fight too." Elara nodded. "Exactly. But we must be careful. The aliens are still searching. They've learned to expect resistance. Any careless move could alert them." For days they traveled across rocky terrain and through scorched forests, moving quietly and avoiding alien patrols. Along the way, Kale shared his knowledge of combat tactics, survival strategies, and human ingenuity. Elara listened and recorded everything. She knew that this knowledge would be invaluable to the next generation of humans. One evening, as they rested near a small stream, Kyle spoke again. "Do you know why I fight?" he asked, staring into the water's reflection. "It's not for glory or victory. It's for the people who come after us. Humans may be scattered, weak, but we survive because we refuse to give up. That's the spark that keeps us alive. Elara felt a shiver of awe run through her. This was the essence of humanity she had been searching for, the drive to endure, to adapt, and to protect the future. She realized that this spark was worth more than any weapon or technology. It was the very heart of what made humans strong. The next day, they reached the outskirts of a ruined colony. Buildings lay in ruins, the streets littered with debris, and the air was thick with the scent of smoke and decay. Yet in the shadows, they spotted movement. Humans, hiding, watching, waiting. Elara called out softly, identifying herself as a friend and ally. Slowly, the survivors emerged, cautious but curious. Kale stepped forward, despite his injuries, and addressed them. "You are not alone. Humans can survive even in the darkest times. We have survived before, and we will survive again. But we must work together. We must learn, adapt, and protect each other. That is the only way forward." The survivors listened, hesitant at first, but then hope began to grow in their eyes. They had been hiding, afraid, believing that resistance was futile. But here was a living example of what humans could do, a fighter who had faced impossible odds and survived. Kale's courage rekindled a fire in their hearts. Over the next several days, Elara and Kale worked to organize the survivors. They repaired buildings, scavenged for supplies, and set up defenses against potential alien attacks. Kale trained the humans in combat tactics, teaching them how to use the environment to their advantage, how to set traps, and how to think creatively under pressure. Elara taught them to record knowledge, preserve resources, and plan for the future. The group grew closer, united by necessity and inspired by Kale's example. They shared stories of lost friends and family, of colonies destroyed and battles survived. And slowly, a sense of purpose began to take root. They were not just hiding. They were preparing. They were learning what it meant to survive and fight back. One night, as the group rested around a fire, Elara spoke to Kale privately. "You have done more than survive, Kale.
You have inspired them. You've given humans a reason to keep going.
But there is still so much work to do. We must reach more survivors, spread the knowledge, and protect the next generation. That is how we ensure humanity endures." Kale nodded. "I understand. But we will need more than courage and tactics. We will need strategy, planning, and allies. We cannot fight alone forever," Elara smiled faintly. "And we won't. That is why we are building something bigger than ourselves. A human network. A legacy. The fire we carry will spread, and the spark will grow into a flame that cannot be extinguished." As they spoke, the alien patrols moved in the distance, unaware of the humans gathering strength in the ruins. Elara watched the horizon, her mind already planning the next steps. She knew that this fight would not be easy, but she also knew that humans had something no alien force could match: the ability to think, adapt, and endure. Days turned into weeks, and the group grew stronger. Humans who had once cowered in fear now trained with confidence, learning from Kale's experience and Elara's guidance. They repaired equipment, scavenged for supplies, and shared knowledge that had been lost in the chaos of invasion. Each small victory strengthened their resolve, and the spark of hope spread among them like wildfire. Elara often found herself watching Kale in admiration. Despite his injuries, his determination never wavered. He inspired not just the survivors, but her as well. She had witnessed one human fight alone, and now she saw the potential for an entire generation to rise from that example. One evening, as the twin moons cast pale light over the valley, Kyle spoke to the group. "We will survive," he said firmly. "We will adapt, and we will fight when the time comes. But most importantly, we will carry forward what makes us human, our courage, our intelligence, and our spirit. That is how we endure. Elara felt a surge of hope. She knew that the road ahead would be long and dangerous, but for the first time, she truly believed that humanity could survive this invasion. The spark she had witnessed in Kale was no longer alone. It had become a flame, lighting the hearts of many. As the fire crackled and the humans around it shared stories, trained, and laughed, Elara whispered once more, just as she had the night she first saw Kale fight alone. "We must have heirs. We must carry this fire forward." And in that moment, under the quiet watch of the moons, she knew that humanity's spirit was alive, stronger than ever and ready to face the challenges ahead. The valley was alive with movement. Humans who had once cowered in fear now moved with purpose, carrying supplies, repairing structures, and practicing combat drills under Kale's watchful eye. Every day brought new challenges, but each challenge was met with determination. Elara moved among them, observing, teaching, and recording their progress. She felt a surge of pride at what they had become, a small but growing force, united not by fear, but by the will to survive. Kale stood atop a ridge overlooking the valley, his body stronger now, his injuries healed enough to allow him to move freely. His eyes scanned the horizon, looking for any sign of alien patrols. Though the immediate threat seemed distant, he knew better than anyone that complacency could be deadly. "We cannot let them catch us off guard," he said to Elara as she approached. "The moment we feel safe, the moment we relax, they will strike."
Elara nodded, her expression serious. "That is why we train, plan, and prepare."
Every survivor must be ready to act, to think, and to fight. It is not just strength that will save us. It is intelligence, creativity, and unity. Over the following weeks, the group worked tirelessly. Humans who had once been ordinary citizens became skilled hunters, strategists, and engineers. They learned to use the rugged terrain to their advantage, setting traps in narrow passes and creating hidden observation points to monitor alien movements. Kale taught them tactics that had saved his life countless times, emphasizing adaptability over brute force. One day, a scout returned with urgent news. A group of alien drones had been spotted near a settlement several miles away. It was a small unit, but enough to threaten unprepared humans. Kale gathered the group and spoke firmly. "This is our chance to test what we have learned. We will strike, but carefully, observe, adapt, and strike with precision. We are not just survivors. We are humans, and that is our greatest strength." The humans moved silently through the rocky terrain, guided by Cal and Elara. As they approached the alien patrol, they observed from a distance. The drones were mechanical, precise, and relentless, but they lacked the creativity and intuition that humans possessed. Kale pointed to a narrow canyon where the drones would be forced to pass. "This is our advantage," he said. "We control the terrain." The humans positioned themselves along the canyon, setting traps and preparing ambush points. Elara watched as they worked with focus and determination, each person contributing to the plan. When everything was ready, Kale gave the signal. The ambush began. Humans dropped heavy rocks from hidden ledges, striking the drones and disrupting their formations. Traps activated, entangling the aliens and slowing their advance. Kale moved among his team, directing their actions, improvising when unexpected challenges arose. The drones were efficient, but they were predictable. Humans, with their creativity and quick thinking, turned the battlefield to their advantage. Elara's heart pounded as she observed the scene. She had never witnessed humans operating with such cohesion, intelligence, and courage. Each action was deliberate, each decision calculated. The aliens, formidable in design, struggled against the ingenuity and adaptability of the humans. The ambush was successful. The drones were neutralized and the humans emerged with minimal injuries. Cheers rose among the group, but Catalina quickly reminded them, "This is only the beginning. The fight is far from over. Today we succeeded because we worked together, because we adapted, and because we refused to give up. Remember this lesson. Word of their victory spread quickly among other survivors. Humans from nearby hiding places began to approach, curious and hopeful. They had heard whispers of a lone human who had fought alone and survived, and now they saw a small army of humans who had learned to fight together. Hope, long buried under fear and despair, began to grow once more. Alara and Kale worked to integrate the new survivors into their group. They trained them, shared knowledge, and prepared them for the battles to come. The group became more than just a collection of individuals. They became a community, united by a shared purpose and a common goal. One evening, as the group gathered around a fire, Hale spoke to them. You have learned to survive, to adapt, and to fight. But remember, survival is not enough. We must also preserve what makes us human. Our knowledge, our creativity, our courage. These are our true weapons. If we lose them, we lose everything. Alara nodded in agreement. We must also remember why we fight. It is not just for ourselves, but for the humans who will come after us. We fight so that future generations can live, learn, and grow. That is our legacy. The humans listened, inspired by the words of their leaders. They understood that their fight was not just for survival. It was for the continuation of humanity itself. Each person felt the weight of responsibility, but also the strength that came from unity and purpose. As the weeks passed, the group grew stronger and more organized. They repaired abandoned buildings, created hidden supply caches, and developed communication signals to coordinate their movements. Kale and Alara taught them to think like humans, to use ingenuity and strategy to overcome challenges, and to never underestimate the power of courage and determination. One day, while scouting the surrounding area, Kale and Alara discovered a larger alien force moving toward a nearby settlement. It was clear that the aliens were attempting to reclaim territory and eliminate human resistance. Kale knew that a direct confrontation would be risky, but he also recognized an opportunity. We cannot fight them head-on, Kale said, studying the formation of the aliens. But we can use the terrain, our traps, and our numbers to create an advantage. We must be smart, patient, and precise. Alara nodded. We will need everyone to work together. This is not just a fight. It is a test of our ingenuity, our courage, and our humanity. The humans prepared for the upcoming battle with meticulous care. They set traps along narrow passes, created false trails to mislead the aliens, and established lookout points to monitor enemy movements. Each person had a role, and each role was crucial to their success. When the aliens arrived, they were met with a series of unexpected obstacles. Traps slowed their advance, hidden humans struck from above, and Kale directed the group with precision. The aliens were powerful, but their predictability was their weakness. Humans, with their creativity and adaptability, turned the battlefield into a complex maze of challenges that the aliens could not overcome. Alara watched in awe as humans executed complex maneuvers, coordinated attacks, and improvised strategies on the fly. She realized that what she had witnessed in Kale's solo fight had multiplied. Now an entire community of humans fought together, each person contributing their skills, knowledge, and courage. After hours of careful planning and execution, the alien force was forced to retreat. The humans had succeeded, not through brute strength, but through intelligence, cooperation, and determination. Cheers erupted among the group, but Kale reminded them to stay vigilant. This victory is important, he said, addressing the group. But we must remember that the fight is far from over. We have shown that humans can adapt, survive, and fight together. Now we must continue to grow, to learn, and to prepare for what comes next. Our strength lies not in a single hero, but in all of us, working as one. Alara felt a surge of pride as she looked around the camp. The humans who had once been scattered, fearful, and unorganized, were now a cohesive, capable force. They had learned the value of strategy, teamwork, and human ingenuity. They had begun to embody the very qualities that made humans strong: courage, adaptability, and a relentless will to survive. That night, as the group gathered around the fire, Alara and Kale spoke privately. "You have done something incredible," she said, her eyes reflecting the flickering flames. "You have taken what you once did alone and multiplied it. You have inspired not just these humans, but me as well." Kale smiled faintly, exhaustion evident on his face. "I only showed them the way. They had the courage all along. We just had to remind them what it means to be human."
Alara nodded.
"And that is why this fight is different now. We are no longer alone. The spark we saw in you has become a flame that will guide others. Together, we will ensure that humanity survives, thrives, and inspires the future." As the twin moons rose over the valley, illuminating the camp with pale light, the humans gathered around the fire felt a sense of purpose unlike any they had known before. They had fought together, adapted, and overcome impossible odds. They had proven that humanity's greatest strength was not technology or weapons, but the courage, intelligence, and unity of its people. "Alara," whispered once more, her voice barely audible over the crackle of the fire, "we must have heirs. We must carry this fire forward." And in that moment, under the quiet gaze of the moons, humanity's spark burned brighter than ever. Kale had shown what one human could do, but now a whole generation of humans stood ready to continue the fight, to learn, to adapt, and to ensure that their species would endure. The battle for survival was far from over, but the flame of hope had been kindled, and nothing could extinguish it. The valley had changed. What was once a place of fear and uncertainty had become a center of human resilience. Small homes had been rebuilt, makeshift defenses were strengthened, and watchtowers stood at key points along the ridges. Humans moved with purpose, no longer hiding from the alien patrols but preparing for a future where they could stand and fight together. Kale stood at the top of a hill overlooking the valley. His body was stronger than it had been in months, and his spirit was unbroken. Next to him, Alara studied the horizon, her eyes sharp and observant. The alien threat had not disappeared, but the humans were no longer defenseless. They had learned to adapt, to fight together, and to protect what mattered most: their lives, their knowledge, and their future. "We've come far," Kale said quietly, his gaze sweeping over the camp. "But the fight isn't over. The aliens are regrouping, and they will return stronger if we don't take the initiative." Alara nodded.
"That is why we cannot wait."
"We must go on the offensive. We cannot just survive. We must reclaim what is ours and ensure humanity continues. That is our true mission now." Over the next few days, Kale and Alara organized the humans into small, coordinated units. Each group had a role. Some would sabotage alien supply lines, others would gather intelligence, and a few would act as decoys to lure enemy patrols into traps. Every plan relied on human ingenuity, teamwork, and careful strategy. Technology was scarce, but creativity and adaptability were abundant. Alara moved among the groups, helping them refine their techniques. She showed them how to use the environment to their advantage: rocky outcrops for cover, narrow canyons for ambushes, and natural choke points to trap enemy forces. Kale trained them in combat and survival, teaching them how to anticipate alien movements and strike decisively. One morning, as the twin suns rose over the valley, scouts reported a large alien convoy approaching a nearby settlement. The humans readied themselves, knowing that this would be their first major offensive operation. The air was tense, but there was determination in every face. No one spoke of fear, only focus and readiness. Kale addressed the group. "Today we do more than defend ourselves. We strike back. We show the aliens that humans are not weak, that we will fight for every inch of our land. and that we will survive no matter what. Remember your training, trust each other, and above all, think like humans. That is our greatest weapon. The humans moved swiftly and silently, taking up positions along the planned ambush route. They hid among rocks, behind trees, and in small buildings that had been reinforced with scavenged materials. The aliens moved into the kill zone, confident in their numbers, unaware of the traps that awaited them. The attack began. Rocks and debris rained down on the alien convoy, striking drones and vehicles. Hidden humans fired improvised weapons, disabling machinery and scattering enemy units. Hale and Alara moved among the fighters, coordinating movements, improvising as the aliens adapted, and keeping morale high. The battle was intense. Aliens were powerful and well-armed, but the humans' creativity and strategy turned the tide. Every ambush was precise, every strike calculated. The humans worked together flawlessly, covering each other, exploiting weaknesses, and using the terrain to their advantage. Alara watched with pride as humans moved with purpose, showing courage that surpassed anything she had seen before. Hours passed, and the alien forces were forced to retreat. The humans had won, not through superior technology, but through intelligence, determination, and unity. Cheers erupted from the valley as survivors celebrated their victory, but Kale reminded them to stay vigilant.
"This is a victory," he said, addressing the group. "But it is not the end."
The aliens will regroup, and the fight will continue. What matters is that we have proven something crucial. Humans are strong, adaptable, and resilient. That is how we survive, and that is how we will endure. Alara nodded, her eyes reflecting the firelight. We must continue to prepare, to teach, and to grow. Each victory, no matter how small, strengthens us and preserves our legacy. We are not just fighting for today. We are fighting for the future. The following weeks were filled with rebuilding and preparation. Humans repaired damaged settlements, trained new recruits, and strengthened their defenses. Hale and Alara worked tirelessly, guiding and inspiring the growing community. Every day brought new challenges, but also new opportunities to teach and to demonstrate the strength of humanity. One evening, as the twin moons rose high in the sky, Kale and Alara stood together on a ridge, looking out over the valley. The humans below were preparing for another patrol, working together with confidence and skill. Children played nearby, their laughter a rare and precious sound in the midst of chaos. Alara spoke softly, her voice carrying over the ridge. "You have done something incredible, Kale. You have inspired not just these humans, but me as well. The spark I saw in you when you fought alone has become a flame, and now it burns brightly in all of them." Kale smiled faintly. "I only showed them the way. They had the courage all along. We just had to remind them what it means to be human. That is the real victory." Alara nodded, feeling a deep sense of hope. She had witnessed one human fight alone, and now she saw an entire community of humans rising to the challenge. They were no longer scattered, weak, or fearful. They were strong, united, and ready to face whatever came next. Days later, scouts returned with exciting news. Other human survivors had been located, scattered across distant valleys and hidden settlements. Kale and Alara realized that the time had come to expand their influence, to unite humans across the region, and to ensure that their species would endure. They organized expeditions to reach the survivors, bringing with them knowledge, supplies, and hope. Each group they found was welcomed with relief and excitement. Humans who had once believed they were alone learned that they were part of a larger network, a growing community, dedicated to survival, learning, and resistance. Alara and Kale worked tirelessly to teach these new groups what they had learned. They shared combat strategies, survival techniques, and the importance of intelligence, adaptability, and unity. They emphasized the need to preserve knowledge, culture, and courage, ensuring that every human could carry the fire forward. The human network grew steadily, forming a web of connected communities across the valley and beyond. Communication signals were established, supply lines secured, and coordinated strategies developed. Humans were no longer passive survivors. They were active participants in their own future, shaping it with every decision, every action, and every display of ingenuity. One day, Kale and Alara gathered all the humans in the Central Valley for an assembly. The group was larger than ever before, a mix of seasoned fighters, new recruits, and young children learning the ways of their species. Kale addressed them with determination and pride.
"Humans have survived countless challenges," he said. "We have been outnumbered, outgunned, and underestimated. But we endure because we adapt, we think, and we fight with courage. Today we stand not just to survive, but to reclaim our world and ensure that our species continues. Remember, we are humans, and that is our greatest strength." The crowd cheered, their voices echoing through the valley. The sound was powerful, a declaration that humans would not be silenced, that they would continue to thrive no matter the odds. Alara stepped forward, her eyes scanning the group. "We fight not just for ourselves, but for those who will come after us, for the next generation. For our children and for the heirs of humanity. We carry forward a legacy of courage, intelligence, and resilience. That is the fire we protect, and it will never be extinguished." The assembly ended with renewed determination. Humans returned to their duties with a stronger sense of purpose. Training intensified, defenses improved, and knowledge was shared more widely. Each person understood their role in the survival of their species, and they embraced it with pride. Months passed, and the humans continued to grow stronger. They reclaimed more territory, driving back alien patrols and establishing safe zones for survivors. Communities flourished, children were educated, and skills were passed down. Kel and Alara guided them every step of the way, ensuring that the spark they had ignited would burn brightly for generations.
One night, as they watched the moons rise over the valley, Kale turned to Alara.
"We have done something remarkable," he said. "We have taken what began as a lone fight and turned it into a movement, a network, a future for humanity. The fire is no longer just mine. It belongs to all of us." Alara smiled, "And it will continue as long as we remember why we fight, and as long as we teach the next generation to carry it forward. Humans are strong, not because of weapons or numbers, but because of courage, intelligence, and unity. That is our legacy." In the distance, a human-built starship prepared for launch, carrying supplies and knowledge to distant settlements. It was a symbol of hope, progress, and the enduring spirit of humanity. Alara and Kel watched it rise, their hearts filled with pride and determination. The fire of humanity had been kindled, and it would continue to burn. The lone fight that had inspired one observer had grown into a movement, a legacy, and a future. Humans were no longer alone, and they would endure, thrive, and inspire all who came after them. Alara whispered once more, as she had when she first saw Kael fight alone. "We must have heirs. We must carry this fire forward." And under the twin moons, over a valley alive with human courage and determination, she knew that humanity's spark would never die. The battle for survival had begun with one human standing alone, but it would continue through generations, through knowledge, courage, and the enduring spirit that defined what it meant to be human. Humans had fought, survived, and risen together. They were no longer scattered, fearful, or powerless. They were strong, united, and ready to face the future. And the fire of humanity would continue to burn, bright and unyielding, for all time. The valley had grown into a thriving settlement. Once barren and scarred by alien attacks, it was now alive with the sounds of human activity. Children ran through open fields, laughter echoing in the crisp air. Adults worked together, tending gardens, repairing shelters, and strengthening defenses. Kale walked among them, his presence a reminder of the courage that had sparked this new era. Alara followed closely, documenting everything. Her mind focused on the future as much as the present. The humans had learned much since the first battle. Each survivor contributed their knowledge and skills, sharing stories, strategies, and ideas. The survivors had not only endured, they had grown stronger, wiser, and more united. Cale observed them with pride, remembering how alone he had once been, and realizing how far they had come. "We've done well," Cale said quietly to Alara as they watched a group of young humans practicing defensive drills. "But this is only the beginning. We can't just survive here. We must ensure that our species thrives, not only in this valley but across other worlds as well." Alara nodded. "That is why we must train more, explore more, and expand. We have to spread knowledge, preserve human culture, and prepare for the challenges that will come. One valley is not enough. Humans need to rebuild everywhere." For days, they worked on plans to reach distant survivors and start new settlements. Scouts were trained to travel long distances, mapping safe routes and searching for hidden humans. Small teams were sent out with supplies, knowledge, and encouragement. Each successful mission increased confidence and inspired others to rise from hiding. During this time, Cale and Alara emphasized not only survival, but also the importance of teaching the next generation. Children learned basic survival skills, strategy, and even simple engineering. They were taught how to observe, plan, and think critically. Alara ensured that every skill, every lesson, and every story of courage was recorded for future generations. Knowledge became as valuable as weapons, and curiosity and intelligence were celebrated. One morning, a scout returned with urgent news. A massive alien fleet had been spotted approaching the region, larger and more advanced than any they had encountered. Panic began to stir among some of the older survivors, but Cale stepped forward, his calm voice cutting through the fear. "This is what we have prepared for," he said. "This is why we trained, why we learned, why we became stronger. Do not fear them.
Use what we have built. Trust each other.
And remember, you are humans. That is our greatest advantage." The humans began to prepare for the largest challenge they had faced yet. Defensive positions were reinforced, traps were set along likely paths of alien advance, and scouts positioned themselves to provide early warnings. Every human had a role, and every role was essential. As the alien fleet approached, Cale and Alara coordinated with the other leaders to ensure everyone was ready. Humans moved silently, taking positions on cliffs, in forests, and behind reinforced walls. The aliens arrived in formation, confident in their superior numbers and firepower, but the humans had something the aliens could not anticipate: ingenuity, adaptability, and unbreakable spirit. The battle began. Alien drones moved forward, striking and probing defenses, but they were met with coordinated attacks. Traps, decoys, and strategic strikes slowed their advance. Cale led groups to cut off enemy flanks, while Alara directed teams to secure supply lines and maintain communications. Humans moved with precision and creativity, striking where the aliens were weakest and retreating when necessary. Despite the size of the alien force, humans managed to turn the battlefield to their advantage. Narrow canyons, rocky ridges, and prepared traps forced the aliens into positions where their numbers became a liability. Humans exploited every weakness, using speed, cunning, and collaboration to outmaneuver the alien technology. Hours turned into a long and grueling battle, but the humans held their ground. They were tired, wounded, and tested to their limits, yet their resolve never wavered. Every human had a purpose, and they acted together as a single unit. The aliens, unprepared for such coordinated ingenuity, began to retreat, leaving the humans victorious once more. The victory was celebrated across the valley. Humans who had once felt powerless now felt capable, strong, and proud. Cale addressed the crowd, his voice filled with emotion. "We have proven what humans can do. We are not just survivors. We are thinkers, planners, and fighters. We endure because we adapt, we collaborate, and we never give up. This is our strength, Elara added, and it is our responsibility to pass this strength on. We must teach, guide, and preserve knowledge. We must ensure that future generations know what it means to be human, so that they can face challenges even greater than these. Our legacy must continue. In the weeks that followed, humans worked to secure more territories. They began establishing additional settlements across nearby valleys and plains, connecting them through safe routes and communication signals. Each new settlement was guided by the lessons learned from the valley: strategic planning, adaptability, and unity. Humans were no longer scattered survivors. They were builders of a civilization that could endure and grow. Kale and Elara traveled between settlements, ensuring that knowledge and training were passed on. Children learned not only survival, but also engineering, science, and problem-solving. They learned stories of courage and endurance, inspired by the example of those who had fought and survived against impossible odds. Knowledge became a living legacy, growing stronger with each passing generation. One evening, as Kale and Elara watched a young group of humans practicing tactical drills, Kale spoke softly. "Do you remember the first battle we witnessed together? One human standing alone against an army? Look at them now. They are many, and each of them carries the same courage, the same spark. That one fight has grown into a movement." Elara smiled, her eyes reflecting the firelight. "It has grown into a legacy. The spark has become a flame, and it will continue to burn. Humans will endure, not because we are stronger than our enemies, but because we never stop learning, adapting, and working together." The humans continued to expand, establishing connections with other survivor groups across distant regions. Starships were repaired and launched, carrying supplies, knowledge, and people to rebuild colonies on other planets. Every journey strengthened the network, spreading human influence and ensuring that even the farthest settlements were not isolated. In one of these new settlements, a small school had been established. Children learned to read, write, and solve problems. They practiced tactical exercises and learned about the natural world around them. They were encouraged to think creatively, to innovate, and to question. Kyle and Elara visited often, teaching not only survival, but also the values that made humans extraordinary: courage, ingenuity, and perseverance. As the years passed, the human network expanded further. Former survivors became leaders, teachers, and innovators. The scattered remnants of humanity were no longer isolated or fearful. They were united, thriving, and growing stronger with each passing day. Kale and Elara watched their efforts bear fruit, proud of the civilization they had helped rebuild from the ashes of defeat. One night, as the twin moons rose over a peaceful valley, Elara turned to Kale. "We have done more than survive. We have rebuilt, expanded, and inspired future generations. Humanity will endure because we preserved our knowledge, our courage, and our spirit. The spark you once carried alone is now a flame that will light the way for centuries." Kale nodded, a gentle smile on his face. "And it will continue to grow. Humans are strong because we endure, because we adapt, and because we work together. We have fought alone, but we will never be alone again. Our legacy is secure." As they looked over the valley, the sounds of human life filled the air: laughter, conversation, the hum of activity. Children played, adults worked, and the entire community moved with purpose and pride. Humanity had survived the greatest threat it had faced in generations, not by sheer force, but by courage, intelligence, and unity. Elara whispered once more, just as she had the first night she witnessed Kale's lone fight. "We must have heirs. We must carry this fire forward." And under the twin moons, across valleys, plains, and distant planets, the fire of humanity burned brighter than ever. One human had fought alone, inspiring hope. That hope had grown into a movement, a civilization, and a legacy. Humans were no longer scattered or fearful. They were builders, thinkers, and guardians of a future defined by courage, ingenuity, and endurance. The battle for survival had become the story of a species rising, uniting, and ensuring its place in the universe. And as the stars stretched across the sky, the humans of the valley and beyond knew that the fire of humanity would never die. It would continue through generations, through knowledge, through courage, and through the enduring spirit that defined what it truly meant to be human. Alara and Kale stood side by side, watching the valley below. The wind carried the sounds of life, hope, and determination. They had begun with one human fighting alone, and now they saw countless humans thriving, working together, and building a future. It was a testament to the strength of the human spirit, the power of unity, and the legacy that could endure for centuries. With a final glance at the horizon, Kale said softly, "This is just the beginning. Humanity will continue to rise, to explore, and to inspire. We have survived the darkness, and now we will shine." Alara nodded, tears of pride in her eyes. "We fought alone once, but no longer. We are many, and the fire we carry will never go out." And with that, the humans of the valley continued their work, their laughter, and their lives. The spark that had once burned in one human had grown into a flame that would guide humanity forever. The legacy of courage, ingenuity, and resilience would endure, lighting the path for generations yet to come. Humanity had faced impossible odds and prevailed, not because they were invincible, but because they refused to surrender, and that refusal would define their future, shining brightly among the stars.